Welcome to the Steve Barkley Ponders Out Loud podcast. As instructional coaches and school leaders, you are tasked with guiding continuous teacher growth to create student success. This podcast looks to support you with strategies from experienced guests as well as my own insights that I've gathered over the years. I'm thrilled to have you with us. Thanks for tuning in. Coaches listen to guide self-discovery. In the Leader's Guide to Coaching in Schools, Creating Conditions for Effective Learning, John Campbell and Christian van Nieuwerburgh highlight three important elements that coaches need to practice: being present, listening actively, and clarifying. Let's look at each. Being present. The authors highlight that presence is one of the most valuable gifts a coach can offer. It requires full, undistracted attention, listening not just to words, but also to emotions, tone, and body language. Presence creates psychological safety, allowing the teacher to explore thoughts without fear of judgment. For coaches to engage in deep listening, they must be fully engaged rather than thinking ahead or multitasking. I find that taking notes while I'm seated next to the coachee so that they can read my notes assist me in listening and staying in the moment. My notes are often key words that I heard the coachee use. Listening actively. Active listening is affirming and helps the teacher develop self-awareness. It creates space for the teacher to reflect on their own thoughts. It encourages teachers to articulate challenges and possibilities they may not have previously considered. Active listening supports the idea that the coachee, not the coach, should be doing most of the talking and thinking. Clarifying. Clarifying is not about telling teachers what they mean, but rather reflecting back on what's been heard and checking for accuracy. This helps the coachee process their own thoughts more clearly, sometimes leading to new insights. Clarifying also reassures the teacher that they are truly being heard and understood. And that strengthens the trust between coach and coachee. Effective clarifying can involve paraphrasing, asking open-ended questions, or gently challenging inconsistencies in thinking in order to support deeper reflection. In my own coaching practice, and when training coaching to others, I have a major focus on questioning and paraphrasing to assist in being present, listening actively, and clarifying. Let me share a little of my thinking about questions for finding out and questions for sparking reflection.
I'm big on using the term knowing the teacher's agenda. It's important to me that I know what thinking is going on behind the teacher actions that I'm observing. What did the teacher think in planning this lesson? What decisions did the teacher consider in planning and during the lesson? And how did the teacher come to make the decisions that she made? In a pre-conference, an example might be, what did you know about the students as you planned this lesson? And how has that knowing influenced what you planned? Another in a pre-conference might be, how important is this piece of the curriculum to your learners and why? In a post-conference, it might be, when during the lesson Did you see what you thought you would see when you were planning? And what did you see that differed from what you thought while planning? Another post-conference might be this. You asked me to record this particular action. What do you think you'll find when you look at the data that I've collected? The specific example could be, you asked me to record the questions that you use. What do you think you'll find as you look at the list of questions? In many ways, the finding out questions, the knowing questions, are really for me. I want to know the teacher's thinking before I share my thinking. So my decisions about what I'm going to say or how I'm going to say it are influenced by my understanding of the teacher's thinking. Reflection. With reflection questions, I'm looking at sparking the teacher's thinking. Through that reflection, the teacher may consider something that he or she would not have consciously thought through had it not been for the questions coming from the coach. I've actually had experiences in a pre-conference where at the end of it, because of the reflection the teacher has done, the teacher may look at me and go, you know what? I don't even need you to come into my classroom now because the piece that I wanted to work on, I've actually thought through. That consciousness is an important outcome from reflection. Reflection questions in a pre-conference might be something like this. So you're planning to have students work in groups of 4. What have you experienced when you've done that in the past? In a pre-conference, a reflection question might be, how much of this lesson are you able to plan prior to the lesson versus how much of this lesson will have to be decisions you're making as the lesson unfolds? In a post-conference, reflection questions might sound like this. How do you think my presence impacted what happened in the lesson? What questions came to mind? What questions came to your mind as the lesson unfolded? And are there questions that are remaining at the end of this lesson? What would you say you learned while teaching this lesson? It's critical to give enough time when you're asking the reflection questions in conferencing. If you ask the question and the person doesn't begin a response right away, be careful not to begin to offer possible answers, but to just extend that pause time and wait time.
While it's important that coaches provide time for teachers to think following the coach's question, it is equally important that the coach allow time for herself to think after the teacher's response. Only then can the coach ask a question that aligns with being fully present during the teacher's response, rather than thinking about the next question. The coach, taking time for herself, communicates being fully present. Paraphrasing is another skill, and it offers deeper reflection on the teacher's part, as well as increased understanding for the coach about the teacher's thinking. Here are some of my thoughts on implementing paraphrasing.
Paraphrasing is a active listening communication skill. Engaged in a conversation with a person rather than asking them a question to confirm your understanding. You take the message that you're receiving from the person and you play it back to them in a statement, followed by a pause, which usually causes them to add additional information, or at minimum give you a yes that lets you know your interpretation of what you're hearing is correct and accurate. I like to title this skill confirmatory paraphrasing. So it's not confirmatory parroting, which is just repeating back exactly what the person said. You may have had that experience of meeting someone the day that they came back from some active listening training. And as you begin to talk to them, you're followed with, so you're saying, so you're saying, so you're saying. And you kind of want to hit them upside the head and say, if you'd shut up and listen to me, you wouldn't have to keep repeating what I'm saying. A paraphrasing says that I'm pulling a message from listening to you. That message is influenced by your tone of voice. It's influenced by your body language. It's influenced by my past history with you. And I'm taking that message, that interpretation that I'm receiving, and I'm playing it back for you to confirm. So as you're listening to a person in coaching, you might confirm the facts, the feelings, the attitudes or opinions. You might confirm an intention they have or a commitment that they're making. When using the confirmatory paraphrase, your statement that you make needs to end with a period with your voice tone. Example, you will finish tomorrow is a confirmatory paraphrase. You'll finish tomorrow is a question, even though the words are the same. So here's some examples. Imagine that you're in a coaching session and the teacher says to you, it's frustrating to put so much time into planning a lesson and then not have it go well. Here's kind of a series of different confirmatory paraphrases I might use from that one statement from the teacher. Confirming the facts, I might say, you put a lot of time into planning this lesson. Confirming the facts, I might say, the students were unable to complete the independent activity that you designed. If I were to confirm the feelings, I might respond to the teacher with, you're worried about what to do now, or you're angry about the way the students responded, or even you're embarrassed to have gotten that outcome while I was observing. Now remember, as you're listening to these, you're forming a different one in your head because you're seeing a different teacher, you're hearing a different tone. So it's not like there's one correct response here. So to continue, the teacher said, it's frustrating to put so much time into planning a lesson and then not have it go well. I might also confirm an attitude or an opinion. You believe your planning time was wasted, or you think this should be easier. If I were to confirm an intention, I'd be looking to confirm a future action the person might take. You're planning to reteach this. Next time you think you'd break it down into smaller instructional chunks. And lastly, one that I like to use is the confirmatory paraphrase of commitment. I'm looking to reinforce a belief I'm hearing from the teacher. So my confirmatory paraphrase of commitment might sound like this. You're determined to do whatever it takes for your students to master this concept. Now, why would I choose to use a confirmatory paraphrase over asking a question? My question, are you going to reteach this, could be used to confirm, similar to my confirmatory paraphrase, you're planning to reteach this. Confirmatory paraphrases invite a response. Questions require a response. So often one of the concerns with questioning is that questions communicate control. If you think of an irate parent coming to school, the irate parent may come in the door asking questions. And as long as they're asking questions, they're in control. And if you find yourself feeling on the defensive because of their action, you may fire a question back at them in order to pull control onto your side. So whenever you're in a situation where you're looking to downplay your authority, one way to communicate that is to have fewer questions and more confirmatory paraphrases. Coaching is often a spot where you're looking to communicate exactly that message. And so making your questions more open-ended and having fewer questions because of the use of confirmatory paraphrasing allows you to communicate that more shared partnership level with the teacher you're coaching.
Just like the need for a coach to take time after a coachee's response to form a question that is driven from fully listening, some pause time to form a confirmatory paraphrase may be needed. It's not uncommon for me to stop in the middle of a question or a paraphrase and actually modify my response, as I tended to do even some more reflective thinking as I began responding. I believe that those actions communicate commitment to deep listening and understanding. Campbell and Van Nieuwerburgh reinforce that great coaching questions are an extension of great listening. The coach's role is not to ask leading questions, but to pose questions that emerge from deep attention and help the coachees refine their own thinking. Questioning and paraphrasing reinforce the idea that the role of the coach is not to fix or direct, but to create conditions where the coachee can explore and refine their own thinking. The listening-focused nature of open questions and paraphrases supports a growth-oriented coaching environment in which the teacher feels valued, heard, and empowered to take ownership of their own professional learning. You might consider taping a few of your coaching conversations and identify where you are currently practicing or could be implementing more questioning and paraphrasing that pushes deep listening. All educators deserve coaching that is built on deep listening. Thank you for your listening. Thanks for listening, folks. I'd love to hear what you're pondering. You can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn at Steve Barkley, or send me your questions and find my videos and blogs at barkleypd.com.